Hey everyone, Bill Parish here from GTT Audio and Video, and welcome to the channel today. Well, if you're a regular subscriber, you noticed that I just introduced myself a little differently. I threw the "and" video in there. That is part of our name, and we do video. We sell quite a few projectors. We sell surround sound processors. We sell a lot of active speakers for home theater. So we do video. What we're going to talk about today is a revolutionary product as far as I'm concerned. And if you see it, you'll think so as well. It's a highly modified Apple TV. In fact, well, we'll get into the discussion, but it's called Apple TV X. And with that, I want to bring in our friend, Dr. David Robinson, Editor-in-Chief from Positive Feedback Online. Come on in, David.
Hey, welcome. Bill, how's it going?
Excellent, David. How are you?
Always great to see you. I'm doing fine over That's here great. In bright, shining Portland, Oregon. There we go.
You know, we were together, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago up in Montreal, Canada. And I remembered one evening you and I went out. We sat at a nice restaurant. We were overlooking. Well, we saw that mural of
the mural
of
Leonard Cohen.
Leonard Cohen. Yep. That was pretty nice. That was a great evening. And
that led to a very fine photograph too.
Yes. I was telling you something that night. I was telling you about a project that I was lucky enough to be asked to be a beta tester of, and got in, and it had gotten to maturity. And it was the Apple TV X, which is a modded device by Chris Stevens. And you just came out with a brief impression, but before we get into our conversation, let me give a little summary on. It certainly won't be enough to really. I won't say enough to justify how talented this guy is, but Chris Stevens wrote the book on the 9-inch CRTs, the Electro Home marquee projectors. And then he went and put all the specs out there, but he built the world's best projector at the time. It just took a great foundation, which was that Electro Home chassis, and just modified everything in it. And he did that. With Vidicron. He did it with reference imaging, and then they went away. And then I actually, like I said, I did a projector, and I had an engineer who incorporated many things that Chris had designed and talked about in his upgrades.
Right.
Well, so there's not a whole lot of demand for 9-inch CRTs today, but there's a whole lot of demand for a good streaming device and a good HDMI device. And I know Chris and I had talked years ago about streaming will never be as good as the disc because we can't get to the bit rate.
Correct.
But son of a gun, he's managed to. It's all about eliminating noise, and all the noise that's involved in the streaming. It isn't so much the bit rate. It's well, I think he's built the best HDMI streaming device that I've ever seen, but that I think that's out there today. And you've had a chance to play with one now.
Well, yes, you intrigued me big time when you were talking about this, because like you, I am also I'm an audiophile, and I love 2-channel. I love surround as well, but my main bread and butter is 2-channel. But I have been for several decades a serious videophile too. I mean, I bought hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laser discs back in the day. Had a really nice Panasonic setup.
I still have those lasers.
Yeah, I mean, I finally sold them off in bulk because they were taking up too much room that I could put albums in. But went through the whole thing of at first being cautious about DVDs, and then as they improved the quality, then I could see the point of it. And then of course, we hooked up with cable TV through Xfinity. We've been Xfinity customers now for 20 some odd years, and during that time, I was impressed with the improvements. I was praying for high def for years before it finally arrived. Um, I mean, 1080p was in my mind just an absolute revelation,
Certainly.
revolutionary revelation, and so I jumped on that, and I've owned a whole pile of Oppos over the years. Just about every year I'd upgrade my Oppo.
Yeah, I think I had every Oppo that was made,
I think
or
so
or
myself.
at least each series. I bought they would come out with two different versions, and I bought
Right.
the better version
The
every
better
single year.
version that supported more audio, right?
Yeah.
And so, man, I still miss Oppo. I wish those guys were still around.
Well,
But
that 205 was the best piece ever
oh
built.
yeah,
Yeah.
that UDP 205, which I have downstairs. Um, but started into streaming through Amazon Fire because we had a Prime account and became interested in the possibilities early on. Got aboard there and found myself having several of the Amazon. I got an Amazon Fire box and then a couple of sticks, one for a secondary TV, one for the road so that I could plug in when I was in Maui. And so, yeah, got to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And
I've traveled with a Roku many times.
yes, when you got to have your video device. And of course, we've seen just as in so many other areas, the shift from physical media to streaming and online versions of media. We've seen it big time in audio. We've seen it even bigger time in video. Um, and so the question becomes, at what point do you make this transition from one to the other? Well, a lot of people have already done it. I mean, the sales of physical media are not nearly as strong as they were years ago. Now, I'm a physical media junkie. I buy Blu-rays. I buy the 4K discs. I've got a library building again of 4K. I got a ton of 4K discs, and I just love them. And up until the time that you started talking to me about this new device, I was thoroughly convinced that you simply were not going to outdo the 4K. The Oppo did a very good job on it. It wasn't a no holds barred design, but it was really, really great engineering at its price point. You just couldn't touch it. Um, you mentioned this to me, and I'd been streaming for years from multiple sources. I had gone through the early Apple TV, not been too impressed. Went to the 4K TV when it came along, probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago. And I appreciated the difference, but it wasn't like it knocked my block off. My Amazon my Amazon Prime Fire box was my main go-to. Everything was 4K. A few years back, we had purchased a Sony Bravia 65-inch OLED. Um,
Which is really those A9 screens are the reference standard with
oh,
the
they're just
X1 chip. They are just
the
they're
X1
they're
chip.
they're the best of the best. So
Yep.
you've got the screen to be
Yeah.
able.
And when I wrote a check for it, I knew it was the best of the best. It was
Yeah,
not cheap.
it's surprising how much they've come down, but
That
yeah,
is.
it's the best of the best. So you've got the right display to be able to see it.
Well, I had been before that. I had the previous reference that everybody howled about, which was the Panasonic Plasma in a
Yep.
65-inch. And I mean, I've gone all the way up through from rear projector TVs in 1080 all the way up to where we are now with the 4Ks. So I've been very experienced in this area, and I know I've seen fine projectors like your exceptional projector system in your home theater room. Um, and yet when I went and I'd read about OLED, when I went in and checked it out, I realized what was gray on a plasma was black.
Yeah.
It was really solving the problem of true black to provide maximum contrast. That was for me that's what caused me to pull the trigger on the deal. And so the thing's been brilliant ever since. And yet when I put the Apple TV in place, it was a bit of an afterthought. There might be something that I wanted to watch on Apple TV that I might not be able to get over on Amazon, which was my go-to, because the Amazon 4K is a decent unit. But when you talked to me about that, I was intrigued. And then when you pointed me to Chris Stevens, and we had a Zoom session and spent time talking. I mean, he clearly knows what he's doing. And it didn't take very long of talking to him to realize the guy was deep and wide on this subject.
Oh, yes, he was.
And so he described to me generally what he had been doing. And Positive Feedback is one of the magazines that will review modded or hot rodded gear. I mean, we've been doing it for decades. Some other journals don't do it. They don't want to do it. But I know that there's some incredible magic that happens when somebody gets in there and says, I'm going to make this thing work right. And in our extended conversations, I was really taken with Chris. Great guy. And so he said, I'll send you one. You can check it out. It arrived, and inside of a day, all I had to do was gather up all of the parts and pieces that I wanted to do. I wanted to put that unit into a position of being at maximum performance. And so what I did was I sourced Furutech's new NCF8 LAN cable. So it's a Cat 8. Current state of the art, each cable is rather spendy. So that's what I used in our network to connect to the streamer. Our network here we have 4 different listening and viewing spaces, and I've engineered it with all Cisco managed switches. So everything's managed. We have a gigabit pipe to the net from Xfinity, and we get a gigabit. And then downstairs, in addition to the Furutech LAN 8 NCF Ethernet cable, I also brought down one of my treasures, which is Kubala Sosna's Realization AC power cable. I have one of those that Joe has loaned me, and so I said, I'm going to put it here. Then I'm sure the power is being piped in correctly. And then the other cabling component was the HDMI cable, which in this case, I'm using a generation back from Furutech. It's their old HDMI 1.4. But tomorrow, their latest cable, which is, HF-A-NCF, which is rated at 48 gigabits per second, whereas the 1.4 is only rated at 18. And so you got to be careful. You'll be pushing it pretty hard. And that will be the last change I'll make before I see the thing in full glory. But so far, once I put all that into place, ran through Chris's setup procedure, it's very simple and straightforward, set some custom parameters that he recommends. He says to get the most out of what I'm doing here, here's this. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the thing came with a linear power supply, a hefty
Yes.
thing. So the realization actually goes into the linear power supply, and then
Well,
there's a short dongle with a 4-pin screw down power supply lead.
yeah,
And
and
we're
if I
not.
could, if I could interject here, you've brought up some great points, and let me explain. It's more than just a linear power supply. I mean, it's highly modified and built by
Right.
Chris, and people are thinking, well, there's a 4-pin dongle, David just said. Anyone who's thinking out there and watching this and knowing, and why would you need that on something that operates at on DC? I mean,
Right.
DC's two wires, so why would
Right.
you need a? And what he's done is this linear power supply, and I'd love to see someone try this in audio.
Right.
Audio engineers, if you're listening, anyway, he's got auto sensing. He's got two sensing wires that the linear power supply, the sensing wires are two of those wires get mounted into the Apple TV board at a certain chip. And then the linear power supply is sitting there monitoring noise,
Ah.
and if it
Ah.
sees it, it just zaps it in nanoseconds. It knows how to
Ah.
zap this noise, and so you
Wow.
get no noise. You get
Wow.
no noise whatsoever.
Wow.
And sorry to interrupt, but I
No,
just
no.
thought
I mean,
that was,
that's a great point.
yeah, very
I didn't
important.
think that linear power supply, based on what I'm seeing, was some stock off the shelf thing. Um,
No,
I don't think that Chris sells anything that's stock off the shelf.
no, definitely not.
So this is, I mean, when I put all these parts together, um, and he clearly gets cables too, because he didn't make that dongle any longer than it had to be.
Nope.
No 6-foot dongle. You're
And he's got special wire inside that dongle as
Oh
well.
yeah. I mean, this is you're gonna the two of them are gonna have to sit either one on top of the other with a spacer. I've got a an isolate one of Lloyd Walker's isolation devices in between to hoist them, or you're gonna have to put it at right angles, or you're gonna have to face it backwards. And either
I've just got mine sitting right on top,
right, exactly.
and I think you took a really nice picture of that
Yeah,
in your write up, which we are
right,
going to link. Right below this video, you can see
right.
David's first impressions.
Yeah. Well, this was getting all these parts and pieces together. And with the infrastructure already having been rebuilt and with no problem on the bandwidth to the internet, I mean, we were set. So I just walked through. There are these two little cards basically tell you what to do. Um, we already had our Apple TV 4K account. Everything's there. He makes a recommendation that when you get all the settings done and you're firing up and initializing the Apple TV, um, that you, well, how do you put it? He says, make sure that you go to this particular YouTube site to be able to look at a demo.
Right.
But he says to do that, that means from your fresh new unit, you go into the app section, you're going to download the YouTube app. It only takes seconds. And I downloaded the Prime Video app. See, this is a big thing. I can do Prime Video right on this unit. I don't have to use my Amazon Fire unit to watch all of my stuff.
Oh yeah. No, I mean I had Roku's on linear power
Right.
supplies. I had the NVIDIA Shield professional unit.
Right.
I had Apple TVs.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing I used had streaming artifacts. You get
Yep.
those lines, you get noise. It was
Well,
frustrating. And nothing looked as good as that 4K disc on the Oppo 205.
that's right.
Well, and then this comes along, and very early in the beta testing, I mean, it was better than everything. I mean,
Right.
I haven't, and now it's taken to a level that's
Mm-hmm.
beyond compare. I haven't fired up my Roku or that NVIDIA unit or a
Right.
regular. Or I haven't even watched a 4K disc after initially comparing it because it's better. There's
Yeah.
no artifacts. I want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing. I mean, I did say, you've got the reference standard for the screen. I mean, the OLEDs, the Sony OLEDs with the A9s with the X1 chip.
Yep.
Nothing better, folks. Nothing
Nope.
better. It's not
Yeah.
you're not going to find them over at Costco, but
No.
these things, the prices are coming down,
Yeah.
and everyone should be watching an OLED now if you care about video at all. But
Yeah.
I was a subscriber to DirecTV
Mm-hmm.
since the inception, which I believe was
Right.
93 maybe is when they
Yeah.
came out.
Back in the 90s.
I gave up my DirecTV, and
Mm-hmm.
now I use Hulu TV now.
Okay.
DirecTV also has an app, but everything is app based. And
Right.
I mean, you've got the Netflix, you've got Prime, you've got Apple
Yep. Yep.
TV, I got Hulu, Vudu,
Yeah.
Peacock,
Yep.
Paramount. Now, there is video quality differences between app to app, but one
Yeah.
thing's for sure is with this device, you will get the best of the best.
Right.
What I first noticed, I mean, it's like there's infinite gradations
Yeah.
in the color. When you
Yep.
look at a black shirt,
Yep.
and you probably are not going to see this how you should, but when the actor's turning, there's different rays of light from everywhere
Right.
hitting,
Right.
and it's just infinite. It just doesn't look like one color.
Right.
It's never blotchy.
Right.
You see on my screens, I'm using Sony projectors,
Mm-hmm.
a laser and their best lamp projector, and then I'm using Sony OLEDs. And you get to see the material that, of course, you see the resolution.
Right.
You see skin pores, you see
Mm-hmm.
individual
Mm-hmm.
hairs.
Yep.
But now with the latest version, which is the latest version that you and I got, you were shipped the latest version the same day I was.
Right. Right.
Okay, so we
Yep.
got to see it basically at the same time. You might have saw it a day before I did,
Yeah. Well, I
but
tell you.
I described to Chris that it was as I was on the set and I was watching it
Oh,
being filmed. That's
yeah.
how movies are rendered through this. It's
That's right.
as you are on, you get the whole. It's better than the theatrical experience because you are there
Right.
and you're watching it being filmed. I mean, it
Yeah.
immerses you. It's three dimensional.
Yeah.
And I just have to say one other thing too. As much as he's improved the picture quality, which I don't know is 1,000 times from where an original Apple TV is, the audio
Right.
quality's improved as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's part of something that I'm going to be looking into in the next part of my examination of it. But for me, once I got everything configured, ready to go, my app's downloaded, then I go into the YouTube app, bring up. I've got YouTube Premium. I'm running Amazon Prime. We have multiple subscriptions going in various of these, plus our Apple TV subscription. And when I launched his recommended playlist of videos, uh, in a split second,
Oh
my
yeah.
jaw was hanging open.
Yeah.
It was, it was really like beyond optical. I couldn't believe I was watching streaming. That was the thing for me because with streaming, even if you build your infrastructure right and go high speed and everything else, there are a lot of things that can go wrong. Maybe you're using punky Ethernet cable, maybe you're using a crappy power cord. Perhaps you're in a situation where you don't quite understand about HDMI cabling, how critically important that is. But I wasn't expecting to see what I saw because I'm used to a few things. And for example, one of the key things I always look for is banding, what's called banding.
Yeah.
And that's when, for example, you got a smooth sky. There's this nice smooth sky. Maybe the sun's starting to set. And what you see is you'll see these zones, clearly delineated zones of color. You're looking at it. Here's a dark blue going off to midnight blue, but all of a sudden it's like this halo. There's a band of another color of a different type and a band of another color. And you look at it and it distracts you because you're used to smooth. I look at the sky, I see a smooth sky.
That occurs in every single streaming device out there, minus this Apple TV X.
Minus this one. I mean, I said that was one of the things I looked at first was where's the banding? I'm not seeing banding. And the other thing, of course, the big bugaboo, motion artifacts. What happens when somebody moves suddenly and all of a sudden you got pixelization across the screen or a halo effect and the like? That's a kiss of death to me. Every one of those are a punch in the eye when it comes to willingly suspending your disbelief and getting into the video experience. It's like listening to a really dirty, crappy LP. On a good turntable, you're constantly distracted. And so from my standpoint, I looked for that and I wasn't seeing it. I wasn't seeing it even on really high 8K source down to 4K. I wasn't seeing it at all. As a matter of fact, the demos that he recommends you run in that playlist, basically it looks like a playlist he put together. It's a TVX playlist.
Yeah.
It's breathtaking. The delineation of a bird's beak.
Exactly.
Okay. A model standing in a forest with twilight dappling around her and everything. And she moves and you realize it's like I'm standing right next to the camera. What happened, even when it's commercial products, a can of Coca-Cola, and you're going, wow, I've never seen a can of Coca-Cola look like that. And this ain't your grandma's streaming device. You come to realize this is really what streaming can do. Now we work very hard in our network here and in our internet connection. I mean, if Xfinity keeps a careful eye out, and I've had them out a number of times doing upgrades and checking connectors and replacing when needed and all the rest of that. But I'm telling you, this is the first time I saw streaming where I said it's better than the optical.
It is better than the optical. It's
flat out.
You guys. One of the things I love about positive feedback is you guys aren't afraid to have a couple of reviewers write about the same product.
Sure.
And as you know, a reviewer of yours, Adam Goldfine, has the unit, who lives by Chris down there in Arizona. Right. And his day job, fellas, is post-production work for the studios.
Right.
I mean, this guy's got 6-digit machines in there he's working with.
Right.
He's looked at this TVX, we'll call it. It's better. It's better than his $100,000 plus studio equipment. He's getting a better picture. Now, how can that be? Well,
Well,
it's all about eliminating noise and addressing the HDMI connection, which
right.
no one has seemed to do.
Well, and getting you, as is usual in things audio and video, power supplies are critical.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
when you think of the number of the hundreds of millions of wall warts that are hanging around on this planet, um, that people plug in without thinking about it at all, I knew even with that new generation 4K I had that was not hot rodded. When I plugged the wall wart in, I said, "Well, here goes another one of these,"
Yeah.
and I'd watch, and it's okay. I mean, I've been watching video with extreme attention for decades, and it's okay. Did it pull me up out of my chair? Did it seduce me? Did it draw me in? No. I'd already set up the Amazon Fire box, so I did most of my stuff there because it's already set up, and matter of fact, it's every bit as good as the Apple TV, and they're both 4K, and that's that. Uh, but when I finished connecting, within seconds, I thought, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And look, and you're not hearing a reaction from yesterday. You're hearing 40 years of experience saying, there it is. This is, we talked about this for a while in our Montreal discussion. It's what happens if you're going to hype everything. Then, of course, every time you say, oh, this is it, people say, yeah, till next month. No, this is this is
This
it.
is groundbreaking stuff. I mean,
This is I don't know. Chris Stevens says he has discovered the treasure chest here.
this is some
Uh,
stuff we cover on this channel. I search for. You don't hear about the stuff that's not the best out
right,
there because
right,
I'm not interested in that.
right. No, and I'm not either.
Yeah.
As an editor, most of the time, matter of fact, most all of the time, anything that's here is by invitation.
Right.
Okay, I heard it at a show. That's why I'm glad we're getting back to doing shows because that's where I do my scouting. Okay, I hand out my Audio Oasis Awards to the rooms that draw me in. GTT has been one of those for what? As many years as I can remember. Because I know I can count on superb every time. And there are other people that do that too, but there are not a lot of them. And what I, what you're doing is the same thing that I'm doing. I'm uh, I'm I'm not a kid anymore. I've invested in my education in things audio and video, and now I'm at a point in my life where if I hear something in your room at a show that really strikes me, I might be in touch with you. That's a candidate. When people get in touch with me, my response is generally when they say, "Well, what do you want to review?" I say, "What's your reference piece? What's the best you got?" Because I don't have centuries to live here, brother. You know, what's your reference piece? And I have had some companies that said, well, maybe we're not quite ready for that yet. We'll get back to you. Um, which is not my intention. I didn't want to drive anybody away, but by the same token, I've only got so much time, and the really great stuff takes a lot of time to do properly. And so it's very similar discovery or discussion of the Kronos Discovery System in Montreal.
Hmm.
Same thing. Well, there it is. And to have a unit that retails at what, 2,500?
$2,500. Whether
That
whether whether you buy it through Extreme Projectors, which is Chris, or you buy it through GTT Audio, it's the same
right.
price.
It's it's that's the cheapest best ever I've ever seen that I've ever seen. I've never seen a product that cost $2,500 that sat on the top of a category.
Listen, when I was doing the GTT HT Reference 9-inch CRT projector,
Right.
we charged 48,000 for the projector. Then we sold it with a $125,000 Teranex processor,
Right.
and we were using about $25,000 worth of RGB HV cabling.
Yep.
Cabling. It was this video today is extremely inexpensive. You were talking about your HDMI cables, and I want to try some of them. But right
Oh,
now,
you.
I'm using Bullet Train, which is
Hmm.
ISF certified, and they don't
Right.
certify things unless they're great.
Right.
They're $40 a piece, $30 a piece, something like that.
Yeah, you've gotta try the Furitex.
Yeah.
The 1.4s I've been using for years,
I
and
actually have a couple of those. Yeah, very
they're
nice.
very good. Uh, but these new ones, these are the ones that if you get into these, this will get you up into 8K territory when the 8K sets. Right now, just in case the viewers don't know this, 8K is starting to come out, the 8K sets, and there are sources that you can get, but 8K OLED has not come out yet.
No, and there is discussion and there's some science behind this that the eyes might not be able to tell the difference between 4K and 8K. There's
Right,
not a whole lot of material except for some of this demo stuff, but
right,
it's stuff that the eyes really we might have reached our peak, and that's a whole other thing. When people look
right.
at this Apple TV and say, "Oh, well, every year Apple comes out with a new one, or every two
Mm,
years." What
no,
are they going to come out with? This latest unit has it all. It has every video format up to 4K.
right,
It has Dolby Atmos. It's got well, yeah, it's got all the audio formats, and then
right,
it has Dolby Vision, and it has HDR, and they
right.
need the and and I haven't heard of any new video stuff coming. I think video has reached its saturation, at least for a while, until
Yeah, well,
someone
I'm aware of the fact that there are a lot of 8K demos over on. Matter of fact, there are several channels on YouTube Premium that are
yes,
all
there are,
8K
yeah,
sourced, but now there's 12K. And just last night, I ran across a 24K source.
truly, that's incredible.
Well, and it really was a question of, yeah, I can see the difference between 4 and 8, but you're right. There are some variables you have to keep in mind. One is viewing distance,
Yeah, size of the
size of the
screen.
screen, which is supposed to be related to viewing distance. Uh, these things, the larger the screen you want, the more you'll benefit from the higher resolutions. We've been 65-inch for a number of years because that fits best in our space in the great room. Um, I could accommodate, I've measured, I could go as high as 75 if I wanted to. I would not want to go any larger than 75.
Well, just to bring in Chris's reference into perspective, he's doing this on the $90,000 Sony laser projector on
Uh-huh.
on a 14-foot screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yes,
so
you
he
would
is
definitely benefit.
so he knows exactly where his goals are. Hey,
Exactly.
well, with that, David, I think we do need to wrap it up.
Okay.
This we could talk. This is so exciting, and so
It really
it's been
is.
such a cool conversation. I it looks like it's 40 minutes in here. We want to be able to hold our hold the attention. It's just so exciting. But yeah, guys, it's David. Thank you for coming on. Always
Sure. Glad to.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
Guys, like we said in the video, and we'll link below, you can buy it at Extreme Projectors, or you can buy it directly from GTT Audio and Video.
yeah,
And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
yeah.
Thank you so
Whatever you do,
much.
just buy it. Talk